Are any of you watching, participating in my 40-day playful practice challenge? If you are, I would love to hear about how that's going. So please share in the comments. It can be beautiful to do this kind of thing together and to support each other as we do it. Please let us know where you're at with that. What is your practice? How's it going? How does it feel? I said I was going to do a channeling practice, and here I am pulling tarot cards, but they do go together, right? Um, I like to use tarot as a way into channeling sometimes, particularly if it doesn't feel like there's a very strong message coming through. Same with astrology. I work with astrology in that way as well. Okay. So what I don't even know what we're going to talk about today. So spirit, what will be most helpful? What will be most healing? What will be gently transformative for those listening? What are we going to feel into today? It's always new adventure. And that's both exciting, but it can be scary too, right? We spoke in a previous video about that fear that can come up when we have that moment of not knowing, right? Of like, I don't even know where this is going to go. So, but that's okay. It's not really a good adventure if there's no fear that comes up, right? Like, we don't want to pander to fear. We don't want to act out of fear. But fear is also a natural thing to arise, especially when we're doing something new, especially when we're going into the unknown, especially when we're going on an adventure, especially when we're working intuitively or psychically, right? And to not do something because it's scary would be the pandering to the fear, right? But if we see some fear and go on anyway, that's kind of like saying, I'm not controlled by my fear, right? I'm not controlled by the devil. And I think, in a way, the devil is a trick. I don't know that it's like, I don't think of it really as like a particular being, but it can be these sort of programs, these falsehoods, and fear is one of those. Fear is a trick, right? It tries to trick us into staying small or not doing what we're called to do, even, right? Okay, so three cards came out. Three of arrows reversed. So this is about releasing heartache and pain. I'm hearing processing trauma, even, letting go of fear, even, right? Because as we are wounded, right, when we're hurt, we naturally close up and start to guard our hearts, right? And we can become more fearful in that too. And so there's a request in a way, or the spirit's really actually just showing us what we're already doing. Even just in attending to these messages, in me delivering them and in you receiving them. So there is a certain mirror happening where there's a resonance between where I'm at and where you're at, right? That's why you were drawn to this video. And many of us have these guarded hearts that we're really being asked to open right now. And certainly, there's been a lot of fear coming up for me in the past few days as I've played with this idea of sharing these videos and doing this 40-day practice myself. And sometimes the timing is like that, right? Or where just as we're on the cusp of something, just as we're about to, I don't know, you could say level up or step into something new or challenge ourselves in a good way. Very often, that's precisely the moment when fears and even old patterns can actually be amplified. They can actually be even louder in those moments. So it's important to know that sometimes that's actually a sign that we're moving in the right direction. Sometimes fear comes up and it's actually an indicator that we are on the right path, right? It's kind of like if we were to personify those forces of fear and control and call it the devil, right? It's almost like precisely when we're on the right track that the devil shows up to try to deter us, right? So in some ways, when we have more fear, it's almost a sign to keep going. Now, of course, there's a limit. If you're like really feeling terrified about something, you have to tune in and know like maybe something is too big of a stretch, too big of a leap, not appropriate for you, right? So discernment is always required. And it's sort of a skill to learn like what's the right amount of fear to move through. The second card is the Five of Cups reversed, which is beautiful and in a way similar to the Three of Arrows reversed, the Three of Swords. It's Three of Swords reversed. Because Five of Cups upright is about grief, sadness, and sometimes it can be about sort of focusing on the negative. You see how he's looking at the broken cups and the full cups are still behind him. And so the reverse means releasing grief, releasing pain, releasing fear, even because fear is one of those things that prompts us to fixate on the negative, right? And that's a big, big conditioned pattern for so many of us to fixate on the negative. Oops. And it's again, it's kind of a trick because that kind of worry or fixation or negativity presents itself as protection, right? It tells us we have to focus on what could go wrong or what has gone wrong in order to keep ourselves safe, right? So we have compassion for ourselves in doing that. It's not wrong to do it. And yet, something about this moment, and it's sort of I'm getting that it's like simultaneously like something about something that's happening on a collective level, but this is also going to weave through our lives in personal ways. And you may find this video right at that moment when you're on this cusp of stepping into something new, challenging yourself to step out of your comfort zone. And so fear and negativity might be arising so that you can release them. And in terms of the collective shift, there is a realization of it's like as we're shifting paradigms, we're coming out of that paradigm that tells us that logically we should be focused on what's negative, what's going wrong. And we're kind of many of us are sort of seeing more clearly that that very rarely helps us, right? And it's precisely in releasing these fears, these heartaches, these fixations on the negative, on what has gone wrong or what could go wrong. It's precisely that that makes way for the magician. That was the third card that came out. The magician. We are creators. And not in this simplistic way of like single-handedly we create our reality, right? But in the more nuanced way of together, we're all co-creating reality together with each other, with our higher selves, with other beings, with the divine, right? It's this massive collective co-creation. And we do have a role in it. We do have a part to play, right? So that's part of this paradigm shift as well, is recognizing that when we do fixate on the negative and what's gone wrong, we actually narrow the field of possibilities of what could occur, of what we could experience. And, even in a sort of mundane way, we can see how if we're so focused on what could go wrong, for example, you don't even need to believe in magic in order to see that you're more likely to experience that, right? You have to be open to positive possibilities in order to um, make them possible, right? It's like, um, let's see if we can find an example. So let's say you're a bit of a hermit like me, and you don't always find social situations comfortable. But if you walk into a room and you're certain that no one's going to talk to you and everyone hates you, then you're more likely to experience that, right? So while, yes, we are opening up to magic, I think it can help some of us to see that that doesn't even have to be mystical. Like, even in a very practical, just psychological way, we can see how releasing that fear and negativity can open up the possibility of creating, of experiencing more positive potentials. I'm hearing of realizing our dreams. I'm trying to make it very practical and grounded. And spirit's like, it's not ungrounded or unpractical to talk about realizing your dreams, because the dream space is where it begins. The previous paradigm had it literally all backwards, right? To think that all of reality begins from materiality, right? That consciousness is this thing that arises out of the brain, that our dreams are incidental, right? That consciousness is an epiphenomenon. It's accidental. It's not really real. What's really real is the tangible, right? But that's completely backwards. Materiality is the last step. It begins in consciousness, in the dream realm, in the spirit realm. So what will we create? I think I'm getting the message that that's it for today. Just a short, little, sweet message. And it's a confirmation. It's meant to kind of be a confirmation that you are on the right track, that you are, even and especially if you have been feeling a little more fear or heartache or confusion, even, or grief or negativity. If you are feeling those things, that's actually a sign that you're moving closer to this, because they're coming up so you can more clearly see those patterns, so you can release them, so you can it's not about like trying to get rid of them, right? It's about stepping back, seeing them, allowing it to be there, but knowing that you don't have to participate in it. You don't have to believe it, even. You don't have to believe all the thoughts that arise. We can see that, many of our thoughts are sort of programs from the outside, or maybe other people's thoughts, even. And we can personalize that too. So sometimes we sometimes we can tap into other people's energies or the collective energy, but then we try to make sense of it, and so we personalize it. We put a story to it, and we say, I must be feeling this because this happened, or I'm worried about this, right? But sometimes that's just a way that our brain is kind of trying to understand and make sense of these energies that might not even be our own. So, meditation is a beautiful practice for this, where we can learn to step back, witness, and they might come and go, and that's okay. But we don't need to participate in it. We don't need to add to it. We don't need to believe it, right? We don't need to believe those thought processes. And when feelings arise, we allow them to arise. We feel it, because the feelings are looking for a way to be processed and released. And that happens through a feeling, right? Through a feeling of it. So it's not about repressing, but it's really simply about recognizing that sometimes there are these waves, and that is not necessarily like a bad sign. It doesn't mean you're on the right track. And this message is here precisely to say that it might mean, and it probably does mean, if you're still watching this, that you're precisely on the right track. You're clearing the way to stand in the archetype of the magician. I love this card so much. I love this deck. It's the Woodland Wardens Tarot deck. I'm hearing create, play, be free. Okay, that's it for me for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Until next time, take care.